The crystalline spires of the Confederation Capitol glowed with an ethereal light as the Emergency Council session convened. Admiral Zenektal's iridescent scales rippled with tension as she stood before the High Council, her decorated uniform bearing the scars of countless battles. The chamber's perfect acoustics carried her voice to every corner where representatives from 1,000 worlds sat in judgment. "You underestimate them," Zena declared, her 4 eyes fixed on Supreme Commander Varix. "The humans aren't like any species we've encountered before." Varix's tentacles writhed with barely contained derision. "Admiral Call, your distinguished service record is the only reason we're entertaining these concerns, but surely you can't expect us to delay the standardization protocol because of one primitive species." Zena's memory flashed to the Battle of Proxima, where she'd lost half her fleet to what the Confederation had dismissed as primitive human tactics. They'd used their own ships as weapons, turning them into artificial asteroids, masked by debris fields they'd created by destroying their own lunar installations. The humans had sacrificed billions in resources just to create the perfect trap. "I fought the Drachnid swarms and the Silicon Collective," Zena continued, her secondary heart pounding. "But humans, they don't think like us. They don't fight like us. Every defeat makes them stronger. Every loss teaches them something new." The council chamber erupted in murmurs. A Nexian delegate rose, his crystalline form refracting light across the chamber. "Admiral, the species in question hasn't even achieved unified planetary governance. Their technology is centuries behind ours. They still use chemical propulsion for most of their vehicles." "That's exactly what makes them dangerous," Zena insisted. "They've achieved space flight while still divided. They've reached nearby stars despite their technological limitations. Their fiction imagines 1,000 ways they might be destroyed by superior forces, and 1,000 ways they might prevail." She activated a holographic display, showing footage from her encounter at Proxima. The images showed human ships, crewed by Confederation standards, executing maneuvers that should have torn them apart. They build redundancy upon redundancy. Their ships can function with half their systems destroyed. Their command structure continues to function even when decapitated. They plan for failure in ways we never considered necessary. Supreme Commander Varix raised a manipulator, silencing the chamber. "Admiral, your concern for the stability of the standardization protocol is noted. However, the decision has been made. The humans will be given the standard ultimatum: join the Confederation and accept our guidance, or face quarantine of their system." "The quarantine won't hold them," Zena said, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "You don't understand what you're about to provoke. Humans don't accept ultimatums. They don't think in terms of acceptable losses. If you threaten their independence, their very existence." She paused, searching for words that might penetrate centuries of Confederation arrogance. "They will burn their own worlds if it means taking our ships with them." "That would be suicide," another council member scoffed. "Exactly," Zena replied. "They're capable of actions we consider insane because their very nature is to survive against impossible odds. They call it spite, continuing to fight simply to prove their opponent wrong." The chamber grew quiet as Zena activated another hologram, this one showing the aftermath of the Proxima engagement. The debris field of Confederation ships dwarfed the human losses. "We lost that battle not because they were stronger, but because they were willing to sacrifice everything to prove we could be defeated. And they learned from it. Every human ship now carries the lessons from that battle." Supreme Commander Varix's color shifted to deep blue, indicating final judgment. "Your warning is noted, Admiral Catal. But the Confederation has brought peace and unity to thousands of worlds. We will not be deterred by one species' barbaric tendencies. The standardization will proceed as planned." Zena's scales dulled to a deep gray of resignation. As she left the chamber, she sent a coded message to her most trusted officers. "Prepare contingencies. When the humans resist, and they will resist, we must be ready to broker peace. Otherwise, there may not be a confederation left to standardize anyone. The great doors sealed behind her with a sense of finality. In the reflecting pools outside the chamber, Zena caught her own reflection, a decorated admiral of the Confederation fleet, about to watch her civilization make the greatest mistake in its history. Because she knew, with the certainty of one who had faced them in battle, that humanity would not go quietly into the night. They would rage, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Confederation diplomatic vessel Eternal Harmony dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, its crystalline hull gleaming in the light of humanity's homestar. Ambassador Krell stood on the bridge, his tendrils twitching with anticipation as Earth appeared on the main viewport, a blue jewel wrapped in a web of satellites and orbital stations. Primitive, but impressive for their technological level. First Officer Mira noted, her scaled skin shifting colors with curiosity. Look at how they've adapted to their limitations. Those stations shouldn't be able to maintain orbit with such crude materials. Krell ignored her observations, focused instead on the carefully crafted speech stored in his neural implants. The Confederation had standardized thousands of worlds. This would be no different. Behind him, Admiral Tall's warning played in his mind, but he dismissed it. The old warrior had grown soft. The first sign that something was wrong came when their standard greeting received no response. Instead, ships began moving into defensive formations, crude but effective patterns that somehow managed to cover every approach vector to Earth. Ambassador, the communications officer called out, "We're receiving a transmission. Audio only." A human voice filled the bridge, calm but firm. "Confederation vessel, this is Admiral Chen of Earth Defense Command. We've intercepted enough of your communications with your forward elements to know why you're here." The answer is no. Krell's tendrils stiffened in surprise. This wasn't following the standard protocol at all. Surely they can't already know. "We've been watching," Admiral Chen continued. "We saw what happened to the Centauri colonies when they refused your standardization. We saw how you stripped their culture, their independence, all in the name of unity. Earth will not submit." In high orbit, thousands of small objects began detaching from Earth's orbital installations. The Confederation sensors couldn't get a clear reading on them. They appeared to be little more than debris. "Ambassador," Mira warned, "those objects, they're accelerating. Their trajectory. This is your only warning." Admiral Chen's voice cut through the growing tension. "Leave our system, or we will demonstrate exactly why Admiral Ktoll urged you to reconsider this course of action." Krell's diplomatic training took over. "Surely we can discuss this reasonably. The Confederation offers peace, prosperity, unity. At the cost of our freedom, our identity." Chen's voice hardened. "We've seen your peace, your prosperity, your unity. We choose something else." The small objects suddenly changed course, their true nature becoming clear. They weren't debris. They were missiles, each one powered by what appeared to be primitive nuclear pulse drives. The humans had turned their most basic nuclear weapons into propulsion systems, creating devices that could accelerate to relativistic speeds. "Impossible," Mira whispered. "The radiation alone should have killed their crews just launching those." "Who said they're crude?" Another voice cut in on the channel, younger, almost amused. "We call them the Exodus Fleet. Unmanned, automated, and very, very angry about uninvited guests." The Confederation ship's defensive systems activated automatically, its energy shields flaring to life. But these weren't normal missiles. As the first wave approached, they didn't detonate. They simply impacted. Their kinetic energy transformed into pure destructive force. The shields held, but they were draining faster than anyone had predicted possible. "This is your final chance," Chen announced. "The next wave won't be a demonstration." Krell stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The humans had turned their orbital infrastructure into a weapon. Every satellite, every station was bristling with these crude but devastatingly effective missiles. They'd prepared for this, perhaps for years, building their defenses in plain sight, while the Confederation's observers dismissed their technology as primitive. Ambassador, Mira urged, our shields cannot sustain this level of impact. We need to withdraw. In that moment, Krell understood what Admiral Katal had tried to warn them about. The humans hadn't just prepared for defense. They transformed their entire orbital presence into a weapon, sacrificing efficiency and advancement for pure, unrelenting defensive capability. Very well, Krell managed, his diplomatic composure cracking. We will withdraw. But the Confederation Council will not. The Council will do what it has always done. Chen interrupted. It will underestimate us. And when your fleet returns, you'll find we've learned even more from this encounter than you have. Humanity doesn't just adapt, Ambassador. We evolve. Every confrontation makes us stronger. Remember that. As the Eternal Harmony retreated from the Sol system, Krell couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a diplomatic failure. It was the beginning of something much larger. The humans hadn't just rejected Confederation authority. They demonstrated a level of tactical thinking that defied all standard protocols. In his private quarters, he began composing his report to the Council. But he already knew how they would respond. They would see this as an insult, a challenge to their authority. They would never understand that the humans hadn't been threatening them. They had been warning them. The real war was about to begin, and for the first time in his diplomatic career, Krell wasn't certain the Confederation would emerge victorious. Supreme Commander Verix watched the holographic display with mounting frustration as another Confederation battle group reported significant losses. The humans weren't fighting according to any known doctrine. They weren't even fighting according to their own historical patterns. Show me the Eden colony engagement again, he commanded, his tentacles writhing with agitation. The hologram shifted, showing what should have been an easy victory for the Confederation forces. Eden Colony was a small human settlement, barely 3 million inhabitants, with minimal defensive capabilities. The Confederation had sent a standard pacification fleet, more than enough to subdue a minor colony. But the humans had turned the entire colony into a trap. They buried their cities, the tactical officer explained, her scales shifting to a troubled green. When our forces arrived, there was nothing on the surface but automated defense systems. The entire colonial population had moved underground weeks before. The recording showed Confederation ships moving into standard orbital bombardment position. That's when everything went wrong. The planet's crust itself seemed to ripple. And then, 37 ships lost. The officer continued. The humans had spent months hollowing out portions of the planetary crust, creating massive caverns filled with superheated steam. When our ships got into position, they released it all at once. The pressure wave alone destroyed most of our lighter vessels, and the steam clouds contained some kind of corrosive agent that our shields weren't calibrated to stop. Verix's color darkened with rage. They destroyed their own colony's surface to protect it. No, sir, another officer interrupted. Latest intelligence suggests they'd been planning this since they first established the colony. The surface cities were decoys. The real colony was always underground. They built it to be a weapon. In another section of the hologram, footage from the Battle of Proxima Centauri played out. Here, the humans had demonstrated another unprecedented tactic. They'd allowed the Confederation to push them back to their orbital shipyards, making it appear as though they were desperately defending their construction facilities. Then they'd detonated their own shipyards, turning millions of tons of orbital infrastructure into a hypervelocity shrapnel cloud that shredded an entire Confederation battle group. The few ships that survived found themselves engaged by small, agile human vessels that emerged from hiding places within the debris field itself. Their industrial capacity is impossible to gauge, the intelligence officer noted. Every time we destroy their production facilities, we discover they were decoys. They're building ships in asteroid caves, in gas giant atmospheres, in solar orbits disguised as debris. Their entire civilization seems designed to survive and fight from hiding. A communication interrupt flashed across the display. Admiral Zenek, Tall's face appeared, her scales a deep gray of concern. Supreme Commander, I've just received word from the Arcturus front. The humans have deployed something new. The tactical display shifted to show a massive cloud approaching the Confederation fleet at Arcturus. Initial scans suggested it was some kind of nanite weapon, but closer inspection revealed something both simpler and more terrifying. Engineered bacteria, Zena explained, her voice tight with controlled fear. They've created microscopic organisms that consume our hull materials. The spores survive in space and activate on contact with our ship's signatures. 3 vessels have already been compromised. Varix's tentacles went still, a sign of deep disturbance. They're using biological weapons. No, Commander. They're using evolution itself as a weapon. These organisms were engineered to survive in space, to target our specific technology. They've turned their understanding of their own planet's biological history into a weapon of war. The implications were staggering. The humans weren't just fighting with technology. They were using their entire scientific understanding, their complete history of evolution and survival on their deadly homeworld, as inspiration for weapons. How do we fight an enemy that thinks like this? One of the junior officers asked, their scales paling to almost white. They don't try to match our advantages. They just find ways to make our advantages irrelevant. Zena's image flickered as she transmitted more data. There's worse news. We've detected similar biological agents near every major human settlement. They'd been seeding these weapons throughout their territory for months, maybe years. Every time we attack them, we risk spreading their biological countermeasures further. Varix studied the tactical display, watching as the mighty Confederation fleet was forced to retreat from what appeared to be a simple cloud of organic matter. The humans had taken one of the most basic forms of life and turned it into something that could challenge the most advanced ships in the galaxy. "Get me the Council," he ordered, his color shifting to emergency command patterns. The standardization protocols, they need to be reconsidered. The humans aren't just fighting us. They're rewriting the rules of warfare itself. As the command center erupted into activity, Varix couldn't help but remember Admiral Call's warning. The humans didn't think like other species. They didn't fight like other species. And now, facing the full might of the Confederation, they were proving just how dangerous that made them. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in Earth's primary defense command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the largest Confederation fleet yet assembled. They had finally come in force, over 300 capital ships, thousands of support vessels, all converging on the Sol system. The Confederation had apparently decided to end this war with one massive strike. They still think this is about military might, she mused, watching the enemy fleets approach. Around her, the command center hummed with controlled tension as officers coordinated humanity's response. Status of Project Prometheus. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Earth's leading quantum physicist, stepped forward. Her eyes gleamed with a mix of exhaustion and triumph. "The quantum entanglement network is ready, Admiral. Every ship in the defense fleet is connected. Even if they manage to disrupt conventional communications, we'll maintain perfect coordination." This was humanity's greatest secret weapon, not a new form of destruction, but a new way of unifying their forces. They had turned quantum mechanics itself into a communications system that the Confederation couldn't detect or disrupt. "Deploy the Lazarus Protocol," Chen ordered. Throughout the solar system, thousands of seemingly dead ships and orbital installations suddenly came to life. The debris fields from previous battles, which the Confederation had assumed were just wreckage, began to move with purpose. On the main tactical display, the enemy fleet's formation was a thing of beauty, a perfect expression of Confederation military doctrine. It was also exactly what humanity had been waiting for. "Signal the Jupiter Defense Group," Chen commanded. "Begin the gravitational cascade." Deep in Jupiter's atmosphere, massive engines that humanity had spent years building roared to life. They didn't attack the Confederation fleet directly. Instead, they began to manipulate Jupiter's gravitational field in subtle, precisely calculated ways. The Confederation fleet noticed nothing at first. Their sensors were focused on Earth's conventional defenses, on the swarms of small ships and missile platforms that had proven so troublesome in previous engagements. They didn't detect the gravitational waves building up around them, didn't notice how their perfect formation was slowly being pulled into exactly the position humanity wanted them in. "Admiral," one of the Confederation commanders transmitted, his tentacles writhing with smug confidence, "you must see that resistance is futile. We have brought enough force to end this conflict once and for all. Surrender now, and we will show mercy." Chen allowed herself a small smile. "You still don't understand what you're dealing with, do you? We've been preparing for this moment since you first threatened us. Everything you've seen until now, the bacterial weapons, the hidden colonies, the suicide attacks, they were just to keep you occupied while we finished our real defense." In that moment, the gravitational waves reached their calculated peak. Jupiter's manipulation of space-time itself created a cascading series of gravitational lenses, focusing and redirecting the sun's energy in ways that the Confederation's sensors couldn't detect until it was too late. By the first ones, the Confederation commander gasped as his sensors finally registered what was happening. "What have you done?" "We've turned our entire solar system into a weapon," Chen replied calmly. "Every planet, every orbital body, precisely positioned over years of preparation. Jupiter isn't just a gas giant anymore. It's a gravitational lens. The asteroid belt isn't debris. It's a precisely arranged series of mirrors and gravity wells. Even your attacks helped us, clearing space for the final alignments we needed." The Confederation fleet tried to retreat, but they were caught in the gravitational web. Their faster-than-light drives couldn't overcome the localized distortions in space-time that humanity had created. They could only watch as the focused power of the sun itself was channeled through the greatest weapon system ever created, an entire solar system transformed into a vast machine. "This is your final warning," Chen announced, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's determination. "Withdraw all Confederation forces from human space. Acknowledge our independence, or we will be forced to demonstrate that this is just one of the weapons we've prepared." In the silence that followed, Dr. Rodriguez leaned close to Chen's ear. "They don't realize this was our minimal response," she whispered. "They haven't even seen what we did to the Orc cloud yet." The Confederation fleet hung in space, trapped between the impossible weapon humanity had revealed and the humiliation of retreat. Their perfect formation was in shambles, their ship straining against gravitational forces they'd never imagined possible. Finally, the Confederation commander spoke again, his voice heavy with the realization of what they truly faced. "You turned stellar mechanics into a weapon. You weaponized physics itself." "No," Chen corrected him. "We turned our understanding of the universe into a defense system. There's a difference. We don't want to destroy you. We just want you to understand that humanity cannot and will not be conquered. Not now. Not ever." As the Confederation fleet began its withdrawal, coordinating carefully with human controllers to navigate the gravitational maze safely, Admiral Chen turned to her staff. "Send word to all commands. Operation Solar Shield was a success, and send a private message to Admiral Kittle. Tell her she was right about us. We hope that next time, we can meet as equals rather than enemies." The crystalline spires of the Confederation capital still gleamed, but the chamber that had once dismissed humanity's potential now held a very different kind of meeting. Admiral Zenektal stood before the council again, but this time she was not alone. Besides her stood Admiral Sarah Chen, the first human representative to address the Confederation Council. Supreme Commander Varix, his color shifted to the deep blue of formal ceremony, addressed the chamber. "The Confederation has existed for 10,000 years. In all that time, we have never encountered a species quite like humanity. We came to standardize them. Instead, they have standardized us." Murmurs rippled through the assembly as Varix continued. The peace treaty before us today is unprecedented. It recognizes human space as sovereign territory, independent of Confederation authority. More than that, it establishes a new framework for interaction between our civilizations. Admiral Chen stepped forward, her presence commanding despite being physically smaller than most species in the chamber. Humanity doesn't seek isolation, she declared, her voice carrying the same quiet confidence that had faced down the Confederation's greatest fleet. We seek partnership, not subjugation, not standardization, but true collaboration between equals. She activated a holographic display, showing the innovations that had already emerged from initial cooperative efforts. Human adaptability combined with Confederation technology had produced breakthroughs that neither civilization could have achieved alone. Your standardization protocol assumed that there was one right way to advance, Chen continued. We propose that diversity, of thought, of approach, of evolution itself, is the true path to progress. The universe is too vast, too varied, for any single approach to be sufficient. Xena watched with quiet satisfaction as the council members absorbed this. The humans hadn't just defeated the Confederation militarily. They had challenged its most fundamental assumptions about civilization itself. The humans have already begun sharing their defensive innovations, one council member noted, his crystalline form shimmering with interest. Their approach to distributed systems and redundancy has revolutionized our understanding of fleet operations. And their biological engineering, another added, combining their understanding of evolution with our advanced technology. The medical applications alone are staggering. Chen smiled. That's just the beginning. We've learned as much from you as you have from us. Your mastery of faster-than-light travel, your energy manipulation technology, combined with our adaptability and innovative thinking, there's no limit to what we might achieve together. The chamber's attention turned to a new holographic display, showing joint human Confederation research projects already underway. Stations where human creativity merged with Confederation precision. Shipyards where vessels were being constructed incorporating the best of both civilizations' approaches. But the greatest lesson, Xena interjected, her scales shifting to reflect pride, is one of humility. The Confederation believed itself to be the pinnacle of civilization. Humanity showed us that there is always more to learn, always a different way to approach a problem. Supreme Commander Varix rose, his tentacles arranged in the pattern of formal declaration. The treaty before us does more than establish peace. It creates a new framework for galactic civilization, one based on cooperation rather than standardization, on diversity rather than uniformity. We call it the Adaptive Protocol, Chen explained. Each species, each civilization, bringing its unique strengths to face the challenges of the galaxy. Unity without uniformity, progress without loss of identity. The vote that followed was merely a formality. The Confederation had already been transformed by its encounter with humanity. Across the galaxy, other species that had been resistant to standardization were being approached with new protocols, new respect for their unique characteristics and contributions. As the chamber emptied, Xena found herself alone with Chen. You know, the human admiral mused, we were prepared for a much longer conflict. The solar shield system was just the first layer of our defenses. Xena's scales rippled with curiosity. What else did you have planned? Chen's eyes twinkled. Let's hope we never have to find out. But let's just say we had some interesting plans for the Orc cloud, and some of our quantum experiments were creative. You never stop thinking of new possibilities, do you? That's humanity's greatest strength, Chen replied. We never assume we found the only answer, or even the best one. There's always another way, another possibility to explore. As they walked together toward the chamber's exit, Xena reflected on how much had changed. The Confederation had sought to teach humanity its way of doing things. Instead, humanity had taught the galaxy that there was always another way, always room for innovation and adaptation. The stars visible through the chamber's transparent dome seemed somehow brighter now, full of new possibilities. Humanity hadn't just survived its encounter with the Confederation. It had transformed it, opening up new paths of advancement that would benefit all species. The age of standardization was over. The age of adaptation had begun.